Hello, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Do they call it that anymore? I'm dating myself because that's what all we used to say to each other. Happy hump day. You only got 2 more days before the weekend. And for those of you who work the Wednesday through Sunday shift, well, happy Monday. Hey, listen, we got changes going on here. I used to refer to this conversation as our Wednesday conversation for obvious reasons, but you may have noticed on some of the promotional material that I've sent out that this session is going to be called Next Chapter Notes. And I changed the name because I feel like I'm more consistent with some of the other material that I put out, but also because every week that I come on, I'm talking about your next chapter, the next season in your life. And I wanted our conversation and the title of the conversation to be really clear. And I think that title, Next Chapter Notes, really hits at the heart of what I talk about. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Constance Howard. I'm an executive coach for women who are 55 and older, women who have that, I call it the 3 a.m. moment, where your eyes open and the weight of your responsibilities and obligations and expectations just feel really heavy on you. And you have a to-do list that has 50,000 things on it, but you're not on it. And I help women go from the life they have to the life they want. And that's what I talk about every week. And so today we're going to talk about what happens when you finally acknowledge that you're not happy. And I think a lot of women experience this. Inside, there's this feeling that, how did I get here? That's part of that 3 a.m. moment. How did I get here? Um, but you push those feelings aside because you have all of these responsibilities and obligations. And also because on the outside, your life looks pretty good. Most of us, or many of us, have titles. We've built careers over decades, so we have some status. We have the money, we get the promotions. And so to say that you're unhappy feels like you're ungrateful. It feels like, well, what do you have to be unhappy about? When I experienced this, that was the first thought that went through my head, was like you don't have the right to be unhappy after all the things that you have achieved and accomplished. Why would you be unhappy? But that thought, I think, um, keeps women on a hamster wheel. It keeps us working. It keeps us, doing more and more because we don't want to think about why we're unhappy. We just want to keep showing up and fulfilling all of the roles that everybody else has of us. And the other reason why we keep going is because, look, if I'm not this, then who am I? I went through that whole thing when I was thinking about ending my TV news career. I thought, if I'm not that, then who am I? Where do I get my worth if I'm not the go-to person, on my job? If I'm not the one calling the shots, then who am I? And a lot of the women that I coach feel the same way. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not that, then who am I? But here's what I know, and here's what a good friend of mine is always telling me. Two things can be true at the same time. You can have a fabulous life on the outside and be unhappy on the inside. Feel like you are disconnected from the life that you have. That you can have a 50 to-do list that has 50,000 things on it, but you're not on it. You can have those feelings. So what do you do when you feel like that? For most of us, we keep going. We just keep going because we don't know how to get to the other side of it. As I said, when I was in TV news, I just kept going. I couldn't figure out, well, if I wasn't that, then who was I? That was a major problem. And I just kept going. I kept thinking, well, I'll figure it out in a year or two. Or some big thing will happen. I'll have some big revelation, and voila, I'll know what my future is supposed to be. But that never happened. And the feeling that I had inside only increased. It only got stronger, and I think that feeling inside is your soul's way of saying it's time for something new. It's time for you to go into the next chapter of your life. It's time for a new season. None of us thinks that, summer doesn't last forever. Fall doesn't last forever. Seasons come and go. And this season may be coming to an end in your career or a particular lifestyle. I know that when my sister, when her son went off to school, went off to college, that was the end of, her season of being the only one who was his go-to. She has spent all of his life, being the one who was always there for him, the one who took him to football practice and she was the football mom. She did the tailgating, and she came up with all the ideas for the team, and she got all the moms together. I mean, that was her identity. But when my nephew went off to college, it was a new season for her. And it was time for her to reconnect with herself. And maybe this feeling inside of you is telling you it's time for you to reconnect with you. Maybe it's time for you to put yourself on your to-do list. And remember, two things can be true at the same time. You can have a fabulous life that you love, that, you can acknowledge and can honor and celebrate, and still be able to move on to something new. And, that's what I had to do. I realized years before my TV news career ended that it was over. I knew that season was over. I just didn't want to face it. And then when I did face it, I started slowly. I started to open up space for myself. Instead of taking on another assignment or another project, I made time in my day for me to figure out who I was, what I wanted. I remembered some of the things I enjoyed doing before life took off like a rocket. And I think that maybe if you're feeling this uneasiness inside, this unhappiness inside, maybe it's time for you to start taking baby steps toward reconnecting with yourself. What do I mean by baby steps? What I'm suggesting is, number one, acknowledge that you feel uneasy or you feel unhappy. The first step in making a change is acknowledging that something isn't working and you need to make a change. And once you do that, take baby steps, journal, put your thoughts down on paper. Write down in your journal who you want to be. What kind of lifestyle do you want? When I allowed myself to just dream again, it opened up the door for everything else. Once I gave myself permission to think about a different future. Now, remember, we're not going to dishonor what you had. We're not going to say what you did was bad or wrong, or that career was wrong for you. It's none of that. As I said, you built a good career. Be happy, not be happy, but honor it. Honor it and acknowledge that it was a pretty good ride, but now it's time for something new. And when you allow yourself to dream about your future, it opens up pathways for you to start taking action toward building the life that you want. My mom started painting at 70. You know, she went through her whole life. She was the caregiver. She was a single mom. She was the caregiver to 4 kids. So she was always busy because she worked as well. You know, so she was busy with work. She was busy with 4 kids. But then, as she would tell it, it felt like one day suddenly everybody was gone and she was left, you know, in a house by herself, and no one was constantly calling her to do this or to do that. And she started painting. And I have a lot of her work all around my house. She painted, she traveled, she did all kinds of different things. She went into a new season of her life with a lot of gusto and with a lot of curiosity. You know, she didn't let the idea of change scare her. And I'm sure it did at some point, but at it came a time when she was like, I have a lot of life left in me. I have a lot of things I want to experience and joy I want to have. And and she went for it. And so when you start feeling like this unhappiness, take it as an opportunity to reconnect with yourself. Start by journaling. Take the class that you want. Start the hobby that you've always wanted to try, but never had the time to try. Put you on your to-do list and reconnect with the woman you are and the woman you want to become. That's my tip for today in the next chapter notes. I hope this conversation resonated with you. And if it did, leave me a message in the chat and tell me how it resonated with you. And if you're thinking about making a change, what changes will you implement in the next day or two? Let me know. And please hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when any new episodes are posted. I appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.